Opel Racing has emerged as consistent front-runners in the Stannic Satcar series. Opel started off with 2 victories for Mike Briggs when South Africa's Formula of the Future made its debut at Killarney on May the 1st. Rounds 3 and 4 at Goldfields Raceway saw a second Opel enter the fray in the hands of Grant McCleary. Opel scored again when Briggs won round 4. The Opel Challenge came unstuck at a wet and windy East London Grand Prix circuit in rounds 5 and 6. Briggs spun out while leading round 5 and McCleary crashed while leading round 6. Briggs was back in form at rounds 7 and 8 at the Total Race Centre at Swartkops. The young Port Elizabeth driver won both rounds to score his second double of the series. The Johnson-Matthey BMW team has been a constant thorn in the Opel flesh. A disappointing start saw teammates Dion Joubert and Tony Viana crash at Killarney. The team bounced back and Joubert gave BMW their first Stannic Satcar win in round 3 at Goldfields. Opel knew they had a fight on their hands. The Johnson-Matthey BMWs took full advantage of Opel indiscretions at East London. Dion Joubert scored his second victory in round 5. In round 6, veteran Tony Viana, battling bravely against serious illness, was a popular winner for BMW. Back on the Highveld, round 7 and 8 at Swartkops saw Jeff Goddard replace Viana with new sponsorship from Castrol Futron for one of the 2 factory-run cars. 2 second places for Dion Joubert in the Johnson-Matthey car kept the pressure on Opel. The Minolta Toyota Challenge in the Stannic Satcar series also started off on the wrong foot at Killarney. Teammates Mike White and Serge Damso crashed out in round 1. There were encouraging results for the Toyota team, with White and Damso in the points in both rounds at Goldfields Raceway. These were cancelled out in East London when engine failure caused Damso to crash out. White also had his problems in the atrocious conditions for rounds 5 and 6, but was 3rd overall on the day. Mechanical failure in practice sidelined the hapless Serge Damso in rounds 7 and 8 at Swartkops. Teammate Mike White was left to carry the Minolta Toyota flag on a weekend he would rather forget. Twice White was involved in incidents which dropped him out of the running. A 4th manufacturer, Nissan, entered the Stannic Satcar fray at East London with a BP Nissan Sentra in the hands of Nick Duval. There were early teething problems in the tricky conditions at East London. There were more teething problems at Swartkops, but the Sentra was showing plenty of early potential. Stannic proudly presents highlights of rounds 9 and 10 of the Stannic Satcar series from Killarney. Stannic Satcar, the formula of the future. After 3 rounds of the Stannic Satcar series at altitude at Killarney, Goldfields and Swartkops, and 1 at sea level at East London, it was back to the coast for rounds 9 and 10 at the picturesque Killarney circuit in Cape Town late in August. As is always the case, there is an air of organised chaos in the pits. Sophisticated racing machines need a great deal of tender, loving care, and often are prone to last-minute maladies. For the technicians whose job it is to make sure the cars get onto the start grid, there is always something to do. The Stannic Satcar series has developed into a battle between Opel and BMW. At the top of the driver's log, Opel Racing's Mike Briggs held a handy lead over local hero Dion Joubert in the Johnson-Matthey BMW. Tony Viana, now sidelined through illness, was still in 3rd place, ahead of Minolta Toyota's Mike White. Cape Town saw the debut of another privately owned car. Carlos Capella has bought 2 BMW M3s, one for himself and one for his son. It was decided to run one of the cars at Killarney, with Carlos doing the driving.
I bought that car from Team Dynamics in UK. I believe the win won 2 years ago championship in these in privateers. And that's it. And myself here, the first time racing the car. I'm quite happy because I need to do a few alterations, fix suspensions and things like that. So I'm quite happy. I got a little bit problems in the gearbox today.
To further illustrate the impact the Stannic Satcar series has had on South African motorsport, a 5th manufacturer, Volkswagen, used the Killarney meeting to unveil its new Satcar Challenger. At a function in Cape Town, it was announced that with backing from petroleum giant Engen, 2 VW Jetters will be campaigned by factory drivers Chris Aberdeen and Terry Moss. The Engen VW Jetters were designed and developed from scratch by the Volkswagen Competitions Department in Uitenhage.
No question that we as NGen are extremely proud to be associated with so professional a crew. And I guess we'll be even prouder when you've got your names on the board ahead of at the top of the Satcar ratings.
The history of Volkswagen and Audi in terms of motorsport in this country is one of professionalism. It's one of doing the job right. And although the car is not available elsewhere in the world, it's a totally unique vehicle, we wanted to make sure that we did the job properly.
It is hoped Terry Moss will debut one of the cars at Killarney on September the 25th.
I feel very comfortable in the car. And the VW Motorsport team have had experience in building 2 previous cars, our Audis, and I'm very confident that these cars are going to be right from the word go.
This car has been developed here in South Africa. We have had consultants, namely the company Rock, who run the Audi program in France, and we have a car today which we are very happy to say that it is looking very good. We will start testing in 1 week's time. Very important for us is the fact that our United Kingdom counterparts have flown to South Africa today to be here tonight at the launch of the NGen sponsorship in an attempt to secure that we would build cars for the UK.
From building cars to building boats with BP Nissan factory driver Nick Duval.
I qualified as a civil engineer at Stellenbosch University those days and started to work as a civil engineer. But soon I found out that working with concrete and these sort of dead materials wasn't my forte. And after being a civil engineer for 2 or 3 years, I joined up with a guy who was at the time busy in designing racing boats and things that interested me a lot more. So one thing led to another, and I started working with him, and we started designing boats. First thing, of course, that I did is I started racing them as well, offshore racing boats. I started studying myself into boat design, which was really just another application of engineering, which was something that interested me. And today I've got my own business called Technicraft Design, where we specializing in designing of powerboats, and mainly the big super yachts and these sort of things. What is really satisfying is to create something on paper, to design it and to draw it, the styling, the looks, so the whole picture is looking good. And then the best of all is in my profession, we can actually build that thing that I was designed, and I can see it on the water within 6 months or a year or 18 months later, and I can see my creation, and that to me is very, very satisfying and gratifying to see it, especially if it works very well and the boat does its speed and performance. But I've long ago, many years ago, has already decided, made up my mind that my priority will always be motorsport. And therefore, every now and again, the boat design comes second, but that is just one of those things. But I try and fit it all in, try and work Monday to Wednesday on the boat design side, and from late Wednesday to Sunday morning on the motorsport side, and just try and fit it all in. I like to be very busy. I don't like sitting around. So therefore, I don't mind working late hours and fitting it all into my life.
On the surface, there is a lot of light-hearted banter at the driver's draw for the IndyCar-style qualifying, but underneath all the joking, there is an air of tension. Drivers draw for start positions and are allowed a warm-up lap, 2-time flying laps and a slowdown lap. It's a shotgun approach to qualifying that injects added tension to proceedings where teams, drivers and spectators are concerned.
What will be number 1? Number 8. Now I can see what Jabir does and nail him. 9. Good, 2. Yeah!
For two teams, the qualifying draw was to be superfluous. The BP Nissan team was working behind closed doors, with the number 13 garage perhaps significant, and Minolta Toyota had more problems for Serge Damso.
We picked up a hiccup with our engine. We're not quite sure what it is at this stage, whether in fact it's the engine or related systems. But there's just not enough time, and we don't want to take a risk of destroying what we've got. So we've taken the car to the local dealer to have the facilities there, to have a careful look. We rather risk missing the qualifying than missing the race. As you know, Satcar is still a pretty small grid, and for that reason we don't think the sacrifice is that big to miss the qualifying.
It's one of those things we just have to expect. You can't blame anybody, I suppose. You can't blame the team, but it's just one of those things, and I hope things will go better. It's no use getting upset about it because it's not going to help. So I'm sure for the next event we should be ready.
It was also turning out to be a busy weekend for Klerksdorp privateer Farouk Dangoor, who owns the speedy car sales team running a BMW M3.
We changed the gear ratios last night on the car to adapt it more for the circuit. Got the car going quite quick yesterday, but this morning in practice, the third lap here, the crank pulley come loose, and we just found the fault now and we're busy fixing it. We'll be ready for official.
Johnson Matthey BMW driver Dion Joubert drew first place for the qualifying session. For the drivers, it's very much a question of personal preference, whether you were drawn at the top of the list or further down the field. Some like to set targets, others like to chase targets, but either way, there's plenty of nervous tension floating around. Now an integral part of Stannic Satcar series, the Indy-style qualifying allows no room for error. Each driver also has his own method of dealing with the tension as minutes tick away and your time to race the stopwatch approaches.
There might be quite a long gap between me and Michael. Obviously he's the main competitor, and it could be a bit colder by the time he goes out, and the wind could have dropped a little bit. But otherwise it's no problem to go out first. It's the same as first to last. The only thing difference is that you know immediately that you're on pole instead of having to wait for 7 other people to try.
Indy-style qualifying sets up a situation where it's car and driver against the track and timekeeper's stopwatch. Track and weather conditions are vital factors, as is the driver's knowledge of the circuit. Dion Joubert learned his racing at Killarney and wasn't unhappy with his time.
1996. I think that's a good time. 1996.
It's kind of what I expected. I thought we'd maybe a little bit quicker, but there's a bit of a breeze and the track's not really clean, so I'm not unhappy.
Next up in the quest for pole position was Minolta Toyota driver Mike White, with teammate Serge Damso forced to sit out qualifying and destined to start at the back of the grid with Nick de Waal. It was up to White to uphold Toyota honour. There were anxious faces in the Toyota pits as White went about putting all his considerable experience to good use. The drivers look relaxed and at peace with the world. They may make it look like a drive in the park, but inside the cockpit there is extreme concentration. Opel racing star Mike Briggs carried the added pressure as his time to go onto the track approached, of being the favourite to set the fastest qualifying time. It was white-knuckle time in the Opel racing pits. As Briggs prepared to go out onto the circuit, it wasn't only the Opel camp that was on tenterhooks. Dion Joubert and the BMW team had so far clung on to the provisional pole, and only Briggs could alter the situation. It was time to gather around the timing monitors.
The biggest advantage is at least I know what to shoot for. I've got the electronic times on board, so I'll know immediately whether I've gone quick enough or whether I have to go for broke. So something I've been looking forward to, and I hope I can put it to good use now and pull off the pole.
Up and down the pit lane, anxious faces were crowded around the timing monitors. There was as much tension in the BMW camp as there was in the Opel pits. Driver and pit crew know at any given stage what the situation is, and there was jubilation in the Opel pit when Briggs just edged out Dion Joubert.
Thank you, boys.